In the last hour, Dylann Roof's journals from jail were read during the sentencing phase of his federal death penalty trial. The convicted killer murdered 9 people inside Mother Emanuel AME Church in 2015. Raphael James live at the federal courthouse in downtown Charleston. Raphael, there were some concerns today about how this part of the trial is going.
Yes, that's right, Debbie. Perhaps most of the explosive action came from the defense side of the courtroom today. Let's see if I can set a picture for you. Imagine yourself in an operating room. You've got one of the world-class surgeons right there, and you decide to perform your own surgery. Well, that is similar to the case we have here. David Bruck, who is the standby counsel for Dylann Roof, is well respected in capital defense cases in this country, and he is the standby counsel, and Dylann Roof, it seems, is not following his lead. He's not objecting when Bruck says he should object. He's not filing motions when Bruck says he should file motions. In fact, Bruck says he suggested Roof file a mistrial motion, and we later learned Dylann Roof chose not to do so. He is acting as his own attorney. Meanwhile, Bruck says today in court that Roof is unqualified, and he petitioned the judge again to reinstate him as the lead counsel on this case so that the integrity of the case would not suffer any more than it already has. Due process. The judge denied that and said Dylann Roof knew what he was getting into when he chose to be his own attorney in this case, and he has the constitutional right to do so, so he will continue to represent himself. Now, Karina Bolster has more for you on some of the testimony that went forth in court today.
Raphael, we heard a lot of emotional testimony from family members, but perhaps the most jaw-dropping testimony wasn't from a family member at all. It was from a criminal intelligence officer with the Charleston County Sheriff's Office. Lauren Knapp says Dylann Roof was placed on suicide protocol in August of 2015 when she was notified about Roof's first outbound letter that Roof planned to send. Now, in that letter were writings of a historical book that urged young people to commit suicide. Now, when a search was done of Roof's jail cell, officers found several drawings and documents. Now, one of those documents, which was several pages long, in it, Roof wrote, quote, "I do not regret what I did. I'm not sorry. I have not shed a tear for the innocent people I have killed," end quote. Now, we are expected to hear from an FBI agent tomorrow regarding this, what's being termed a jailhouse manifesto. We're also expected to hear from family members of Cynthia Hurd, Ethel Lance, and Susie Jackson. Now, the prosecution believes it could wrap up its case by Monday afternoon. Raphael?
All right, Karina, thank you very much. And we've heard from the defense, from Bruck, that there are too many witnesses on the list to be called to testify, and that up until this point, the witnesses of the families, the victims, have taken too long. In fact, Bruck stood up once to say this is his sentencing, Dylann Roof, not a memorial service, stating that it read more like a tribute to the family members than a sentencing phase for Dylann Roof. Attorneys who were in the audience also saw this and said this is not the way capital cases normally go. And in court, Judge Gergel as well said that this was his first capital defense sentencing as well, or capital punishment sentencing, as well as the prosecutor's term. I talked with an attorney from North Carolina who said that these things normally don't work quite this way.
Well, the prosecutor seems to be working and operating by a script that only he knows about. And when the evidence that comes in is as prejudicial as this, it's sort of extraordinary that evidence is not reviewed beforehand by counsel or by the court.
And he says, Attorney Hill says, that is complicated or compounded when Dylann Roof won't stand up and object or fight for himself. Our Carter Coyle was also in court today, and Carter, you got to hear some of that testimony and see the emotion that the family puts themselves through day in and day out.
It's hard for people who don't know these victims, so I cannot imagine what it feels like for the family members, the children of the victims who are in there hearing these details. Again today, similar to yesterday, there was a lot of crying as the testimony kind of progressed through each victim. were also some lighter moments, again, as family members went over kind of quirks, personality traits, those sort of things, kind of inside knowledge that the family was laughing quietly at, clearly things that they knew about. It was especially hard hearing from some of the younger witnesses today. The 16-year-old daughter of Sharonda Singleton, two of DePayne Middleton doctors' daughters, who are both young in their 20s, spoke. That was especially heartbreaking, and hearing how they described their mom as their best friend. There was a break from that emotion toward the end of the day as the jury heard those jailhouse journal writings Karina mentioned earlier. People in the courtroom were kind of shaking their heads in disbelief as they heard of that rant on paper. Again today, Raphael, lots of hugs, people kind of huddling together between testimony, crying some, praying some, just comforting each other. Clearly a family comfort for them to all be together in this hard time.
And of course, this is a death penalty trial. He is looking at either life in prison with no chance of parole, or being given a death sentence. Now, I polled some of the family members today, and they're not so crystal clear as to what all of them want. There are some who are decidedly, yes, I want him to get the death penalty. I want him to pay for what he's done. But I talked to several more, and they say, no, we don't believe in the death penalty. Back to you in the studio.
Phil, thank you. And earlier this afternoon, Roof's state trial was delayed indefinitely. Now, that trial was set to start in a little over a week on January 17th, but a judge's order says more time is needed to prepare since this federal trial is still ongoing. Roof faces 13 state charges, including 9 murder and 3 attempted murder charges.